Hi guys, and welcome back. And today we will get on with doing the 2021 year in review. And whilst in the last couple of years I felt I haven't been as productive, I was quite surprised when I put all this together to discover that I'd probably done more than I have in the last few years, and feeling pretty happy about that. And hopefully that's a sign of even more to come in 2022. Now, before we get started, this is not a paid announcement. This is a tolerated announcement. This video is tolerated by JJ's Celebration Hampers, my wife's business. And she had a fantastic December sending hampers all around Australia and just offering for viewers here a 5% discount using the code Halidon63. And that is for any of your loved ones, friends, families, colleagues, employees, whatever. We only ship within Australia, but very nice hampers and a great way of saying thinking of you to anyone you might care for. So it kicked the year off with the painting of some resin Dutch infantry, and this is for the Haledonian First Encounter diorama, and we'll see a bit more of that as the video goes on. And these were beautifully cast, or beautifully sculpted figures and subsequently cast. And it was a great deal of fun to paint all these guys. I think they came up reasonably well, and I think they'll look pretty decent in the diorama when that's finished, which is certainly on the plans for 2022. But yeah, the detail in the sculpting is fantastic, and really had a lot of fun putting these together and then painting them. So the next thing off the bench was the little Panzer II, the Tamiya 135th scale Panzer II. And again, everyone says the same thing, but typical Tamiya went together really well, and was just, again, a lot of fun to make and no frustrations involved in the making of it. And at the conclusion of the making, I just got down a bit of a base coat of rust, to be honest, which was theoretically going to come through when I did a little bit of the weathering later on. Some of it did, but probably not as much as I thought would. But then it's early war and it shouldn't be too rusty, so maybe that was for the best. And this, of course, is also part of the First Encounter diorama. So the next video was the painting of the Panzer II, and I kept it relatively simple. I didn't go crazy with weathering or the like. A little bit of mud and rust in the tracks and a little bit of rust on the back around the exhaust, but by and large, because I knew it was going to get bashed up pretty severely and was going to represent a burning out, destroyed tank, I kept it to a minimum. But yeah, it was very easy to paint. Panzer grey and just a few highlights here and there. Not too difficult at all. And then the video after that was the destruction of the Panzer II, and that was actually quite a lot of fun, sort of doing the damage that I thought looked as realistic as I could make it down one side, and all sort of had to be aligned because I wanted to depict this in the final diorama with real smoke coming out of it from a little smoke machine that the train chaps use, and the flickering, burning flames as well. So just wanted to make sure that that was going to work. It's actually quite complicated when you get into it with the draft and where the smoke will actually come out of, and I wasn't getting any of it out of my holes that I'd put in initially. It was all just pouring out of the top of the turret, and I wanted it to be a little bit more even than that. So there was a few little tweaky bits in the interior to sort of funnel the smoke in the right directions, but we'll see that eventually in the final reveal. Now, still part of the First Encounter diorama, I had a crack at sculpting a 1/35th scale German Fallschrimjager, and this is all sculpted over a resin armature that I 3D printed, with the exception of the head, which is a Hornet head, and the hands, which I think were, from memory now, I'm struggling, I think they were just some Tamiya hands, but could have been anything, to be honest. With the baking of the polymer clay, here he is. He's got a massive left shoulder, clearly a left-handed gentleman. So look, 1/35th scale sculpting ain't easy, and it's my second sort of crack at it. I did one a while ago, which was a World War One British dude over a wire armature, and that, I think I've improved a little bit, but still want to do more sculpting. But I think I might hone my skills at a slightly larger scale moving forward. So then turning to the Dio base for the first encounter, and that was quite complicated to get the little secret drawer in there for the smoke machine and the flashing lights, and the Panzer II will sit on top of those guys. But a little bit of fiddling around, but got it there in the end, and was pretty happy with the overall appearance of the base. So the little drawer hidden behind the 3D printed first encounter plaque had the little brass corners that I added on to the stained pine, and the green felt on the bottom, and so it's a court area, so the paved stones just carved into the plaster compound. So all weathered up and ready to rock and roll. Then for something completely different, I 3D printed this little Hobbit. So it's probably about, it's a 28mm figure from Hero Forge, but I made it bigger, so I reckon it's about 40mm in height. And that was a commission, basically, and it sits on a hollow pine box. And when you lift the figure off, there's a felt-lined little compartment on the inside, and that was interesting to play with the software on Hero Forge and get a bit more familiar with that, and then painting it up was pretty breezy and a bit of fun. Then moved back into a little bit of plastic kit modelling and 1/72nd scale Corsair, and that was great to build. It came together pretty well. It fitted quite nicely in the main, but probably had the most fun in just painting it up and getting a little bit of weathering on it, wear, and it's a bit battle stained, and it's been through the ringer a little bit, but yeah, I don't mind building the occasional aircraft. I know I'm not very good at it. I'm an armour modeller, and you can hide all your sins with mud with armour modelling. You have to be a little bit more skillful with aircraft modelling. But I enjoy the process, and I want to do more of it in the future. But yeah, I was happy with the way this turned out in the finish. Then back to painting the ZULU figures for the Rorke's Drift diorama, the ZULU movie tribute. And it was nice to see them come together with a bit of paint on them, because most of them had been pretty heavily, had been customized by removing the webbing and getting the belts around the same way as they were in the movie. I was going to say the right way, but that's not necessarily true. And then the command group there of Chard and Bromhead and the bugler and the other lazy sod who just seems to be leaning on his rifle. Really happy with the way they came up, and that's the next thing I'm into in 2022. And so the next video is the making of the Corsair display stand, and that was to represent the deck of an aircraft carrier. And that was a bit of fun because I 3D printed the moulding for the base, where I typically would have used timber, and then I made a silicon mould of that, so I can produce the same size bases moving forward in resin. The rest is just balsa wood and some aftermarket metal tie-down strips across the top of the decking, and then tried to get that sort of metallic-y, blacky, sort of mottledy colour on it, which sort of worked, and printed off the little nameplate down the bottom and illuminated the Marine Air Corps symbol on the front. So was quite happy with the way that came out as well. I think I'm perfecting that sort of stand. Then the completion of a long-running project, the Miniature 1/16th French Cuirassier, and I reckon this has been going for years on and off, and I was really determined to actually finish it. And had to say, in spite of some difficulties with some weird shit happening with the cuirass melting because of whatever I spilt on it or put inside of it, overcame that challenge, and it looks really good on the shelf. And probably the lighting in the pictures doesn't do the painting full justice, but I was really happy with the colour variation and the use of light and shading on the uniform in particular. So, yeah, good to get that one away, and I think I'll be doing more of them in the future too. And then we get into more current times, and that's the building of the Tiger 1 tank. And of course, as we now know, it's going to be part of a Saving Private Ryan tribute diorama. And again, Tamiya kit, brilliant to put together, very simple. Got the aftermarket Zim and stuck that on, and I thought that came out quite nicely and looked very effective as well. Happy with how that came out, and looking forward to getting stuck into that Dio in 2022. And just sort of a little bit out of the blue was the need to make some wooden boxes. So I thought I'd make a video tutorial on how I was having a crack at it. And again, was happy with how these came out and need a little bit more work and refinement. But the wood grain effect I thought was really pleasing. And they were all a little bit too big in the finish for what I wanted in the stowage for the Tiger 1 tank, but they'll certainly come in useful for the broader diorama scene overall. So, yeah, hopefully people got a little bit of value out of seeing that video. And then back to the Tiger 1 to do the painting and the weathering, and have to say was very happy with how this came out. Used some different tape, some medical grade tape that you would put on under a sticky elastic support tape to stop your skin from getting rash affected. And yeah, that was really easy to work with and seemed to keep pretty clear lines, not a lot of bleed, even though it left no residue at all when it came off. So that was really pleasing, and I was happy with the way the tricolour came out. I was pretty happy with the way the stowage came out, although the ropes bother me, but I think I'm too lazy to go back and make them look more practical. But yeah, it's a nice tank to paint. And of course, the last video for the year, which is the one that came out just a few days ago, which you have probably already seen, was the Christmas special with the English, the French, and the German guys getting together in the trench, or in the middle of no man's land, to be more accurate, having a Christmas drink and just putting the worries of the war behind them for a little while at the very least. And yeah, look, really happy with how that came out. The figures were fantastic resin figures by Black Dog, I think, in the main, and the French officer by Tank. Nice to paint them up and get a little bit of different colours going as well. The kilt was fun to paint. I was really happy with the Scottish guy's hat. I thought that came out pretty well. So yeah, all in all, very pleased with how that turned out. So what are the plans for 2022? Well, certainly finish the ZULU Dio. That is pretty much first on the list. Finished the first Encounter Dio. So there's a bit of work to do there. And then really get stuck into the Private Ryan Dio. So they're the three big ones that I want to get done. What else is planned? I want to do some of the 1/72nd scale Haledonian Air Force watching the Wheel of Time. I read all the books, so I want to do a little 28mm vignette, and this is me messing around in Hero Forge to try and create a approximation of the Moraine figure. So more work to do on that, but that's something I'm keen to get into. Diorama Rescue Series. This is, I'll spend a little bit more time on this. This is a dio I put together about 45 years ago, and it's pretty crude, and the figures are fairly ordinarily painted, but it's managed to survive many house moves over the journey, and I want to fix it up. I'm into watching The Witcher as well, Henry Cavill, so keen to sculpt that, and Henry's a Warhammer fan, so he's one of us. And finally, if I can get around to it, a Russian Winter Assault dio. And so there's a bit on the plate there. Not sure how we'll go with all that, but it'll be fun trying. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support over the year. Really appreciate it. Happy New Year to all, and I'll catch you in 2022. So if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and share. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and ding the donger. And of course, leave a comment because I love reading them. Cheers!